Hello, everyone. Hello. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, the nutrition detective of nutritionrestored.com. Hopefully we're doing this live for the very first time. So if that intro got cut off, I'm sorry, I'm still figuring this out, but I just decided to do it live today because I could. And that's how we do these things. So what we're going over today, birth control ruins health. And here's the science of how that happens. Here's what it is doing. A lot of people talk about birth control being bad, but they don't really know what it does. Well, I can tell you exactly what it does. We have the research, we have the evidence, and we have all the connections, and here you go. So what do I mean by birth control exactly? We've got to define our terms always first. By birth control, I mean pharmaceutical synthetic hormone delivery systems that are intended to make a woman infertile. Now, the assumption is that it's only temporary, right? But it might be permanent and you might be sterile. So just remember that, parents and women, if you're going to take synthetic hormonal birth control, that you might not ever get pregnant. It might induce sterility. It might be related to population control. Anyway, let's talk about, we're talking about the pill. We're talking about implants, hormone implants, an intrauterine device, also known as a hormonal IUD, injections, vaginal rings, skin patches, or any other method I might have missed. I'm not going to discuss copper IUDs in the context of this presentation. Copper IUDs are just a guaranteed way. You're putting a piece of metal in you. The point of that piece of metal being in you is to induce infertility. You are absorbing that copper into your tissues, both locally and it's going systemically. You are causing a true copper toxicity just because it doesn't show up amazingly well in the blood in certain studies. It's going into your tissues. That's the problem with it. It goes into the tissues and it gets stuck there. So anyway, copper IUDs are not safer just because they're not hormonal. I used to think that, being a naturopathic doctor, I thought, well, it's a mineral. It's got to be safer than the hormones. Copper IUDs are a disaster. Don't mess with any of it if you don't need to. Why is that? Fertility and health. Let's go over that. Fertility is a marker of human health. It's one of the most important markers because if we're not healthy enough to reproduce, then humanity ends, right? So logically, we like to use logic here. If taking a drug or anything else makes a person infertile, by logical extension, it is negatively affecting their health. You are taking a healthy person and making them infertile. Infertility is a marker of poor health. Therefore, that drug is making them have poor health. Those two go together. They cannot be separated. Most people, and this includes women, the men that love them, and the parents of young women who are going on this stuff, they usually only figure out this connection between fertility and health after the fact, when they're left with the consequences. So what am I going to try to show in this presentation? I am going to demonstrate the connections between the fact that birth control has been thoroughly connected to increasing the risks of many diseases. I'm going to show that birth control causes research-demonstrated vitamin A toxicity. And this has been known since at least 1975. What is that? Only 45 years now. They've only known about this for 45 years. Birth control causes multiple nutrient deficiencies. And this is partially due to the induced vitamin A toxicity, and it's partially due to what the pharmaceutical synthetic hormones require to process them. And that this toxicity affects the liver and reproductive system, and the long-term side effects from taking birth control will remain until both the chronic vitamin A toxicity is resolved and the remaining nutrient deficiencies are properly dealt with for that individual. Because you can't, you can shotgun it. You may or may not hit your target. We tend to be exact in ours. We follow something called test, don't guess. So the research on birth control, we're going to go into some of that now, and I'm going to be going through a couple studies here, short blurbs out of studies, maybe a little boring for some of you, but I'm going to try to run through them as quickly as possible. I'm going to show you time after time, this vitamin A toxicity comes up and the nutrient deficiencies are everywhere. So the research on birth control. I have my original post on this at my, what I call my research forum. Changing the name of it for those of you who've been around me a while. I'm going to change it to the research forum because that's where I post my 400, 500 plus posts about this stuff where I research and I link everything to the research. So first we're going to go through a paper discussing, a review paper discussing the diseases linked to birth control use. You're going to want to get your pen and paper out for this one. The paper is called Hormonal Contraception and the Development of Autoimmunity. Gosh, didn't Grant Genereux at Genereux, GENEREUX.blog connect vitamin A mechanistically to autoimmunity? And I've taken that, even further. Gosh, here's a paper called Hormonal Contraception and Development of Autoimmunity, a review of the literature. And I'm here telling you that vitamin A toxicity can be caused by birth control pills. Interesting connections, right? Here we go. Quote, based on this review, substantial evidence exists linking the use of combined oral contraceptives to a lower incidence of hyperthyroidism. Okay, here we go. An increase in multiple sclerosis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, systemic lupus erythematosus, and interstitial cystitis. Progesterone-only contraceptives are linked to progesterone dermatitis, and in one large developing world recurrent cohort study are associated with increases in arthropathies and related disorders, eczema and contact dermatitis, pruritus and related conditions, alopecia, acne, and urticaria. Hormonal contraceptives modulate the immune system and may influence the susceptibility to autoimmune diseases with significant increases in risk for several autoimmune diseases. That's a long list, right? Long-term chronic diseases linked to birth control. I bet your doctor didn't mention those to you when they were writing your script. They'll just write that script like nothing. Didn't the reps tell them about this? So now we're going to go into the studies showing the nutrient deficiencies, but particularly we're going to go into the studies showing that vitamin A goes up taking birth control. But taking birth control doesn't have any vitamin A in it. So how could that happen? Well, I'll get into that later after the papers. I just want to show you the evidence that it happens and that we know it happens. So paper, the toxic pathophysiology of retinol, vitamin A, hypervitaminosis, and norepinephrine enanthate in rats from 1990. Quote, the use of the long-acting contraceptives was accompanied by clinically overt toxic manifestations on the liver, glucose tolerance, diabetes, in addition to the danger of carcinogenicity. Also, chronic hypervitaminosis A leads to a variety of toxic manifestations of obscure mechanism. The objective of this experimental work was directed to study the toxicity of the isolated and combined augmented doses of the two therapeutic agents on the female albino rat. The results of the present study evidenced that the long-acting contraceptive norepinephrine enanthate is potentially hepato and nephrotoxic. More damage to the liver and luteinization of the theca and stroma cells of the ovaries occurred as a result of retinol hypervitaminosis. The brunt of toxicity and damage on the test organs after co-administration of both chemicals proved to be synergetic, except on the ovarian tissues, end quote. So, luteinization. They're finding extra lutein in the tissues of the female reproductive system. Well, taking birth control doesn't bring in lutein, which is a carotenoid, does it? No. Hepatotoxicity is liver toxic. Nephrotoxicity is kidney toxic. And they're saying vitamin A, hypervitaminosis A, vitamin A toxicity leads to a variety of toxic manifestations of obscure mechanism. It's not obscure. They've known about vitamin A toxicity since the 40s, since cod liver oil came into fashion, for any of you who are taking that poison. Let's go to the next one. From the paper, Oral Contraceptives and Vitamins, a review from 1975. Quote, the literature concerning the influence of estrogen-containing oral contraceptives on vitamins is reviewed. The appearance of an elevated plasma concentration of vitamin A is probably without clinical importance. While there seems to be a clear connection between disturbances of vitamin B6 metabolism and mental symptoms, low levels of folic acid and vitamin B12 have also been noted, end quote. Gosh, isn't there a crowd these days that's like totally obsessing over folates and B12? The methylation crowd. You fix methylation with B2, but that's a whole other story. So we got folic acid depleted, B12 depleted, disturbances of B6 metabolism, and vitamin A toxicity. Wow, 75, huh? Next paper, effects of oral contraceptive steroids on vitamin and lipid levels in serum from 1975 also. Quote, the group of women using oral contraceptive agents was found to have significantly higher levels of hemoglobin, packed cell volume, serum vitamin A, total lipids, triglycerides, got high triglycerides, vitamin E, and alpha-1 protein, and significantly lower levels of serum and red cell folacin, vitamin B12, and albumin. End quote. Moving on. Very similar thing, but two different studies. Next paper, effect of oral contraceptive agents on nutrients, part 2, vitamins, 1975. They did a lot of studies this year. Quote, increased plasma vitamin A and decreased carotene levels were observed in oral contraceptive agent users. Urinary excretion of both thiamine, B1, and riboflavin, B2, in subjects using oral contraceptive agents were lower in A groups. Erythrocyte folate and plasma pyridoxal phosphate, B6, was decreased in A groups due to oral contraceptive agents. So, same thing. Third different study showing increased vitamin A, lower folate, lower B12. The A groups meant the women who were not malnourished and not living in poverty. So they were talking about, middle class, the middle class women and up. Next paper, this one's a little long one. Relationship between levels of blood lipids, vitamin C, A, and E, serum copper compounds, and urinary excretions of tryptophan metabolites in women taking oral contraceptive therapy from 1975. Quote, the most consistent changes due to oral contraceptive agents were in serum levels of copper, triglycerides, and vitamin A, and in the urinary excretion of xanthurenic acid and niacin derivatives before and after a tryptophan load test. The highest blood pressures and serum triglycerides and vitamin A levels were obtained in those women who ingested the highest levels of estrogens. The oral contraceptive agent users had the oral contraceptive agents users had the lowest average levels of carotenoids corresponding to the highest average levels of vitamin A in the serum. Thus, estrogens not only increase the rate of change of tryptophan to niacin, but may also increase the rate of conversion of carotenes to vitamin A. Relative reactivity to oral contraceptive agents and possible risk to a patient might be evaluated by a profile of blood pressure and serum triglycerides, copper, and vitamin A. End quote. 1975, they were suggesting that if you're a woman listening to this and you had a bad reaction to birth control pills, in 1975, this paper was suggesting that if they would have done blood pressure, triglycerides, serum copper, and measured your vitamin A, they might be able to tell if birth control pills were going to be bad for you. Have you ever heard a doctor talk about running these tests on you before they put you on birth control? Did they ever run any tests before they put you on birth control? Should they? Should they do their due diligence and learn about this stuff? Yeah. Yeah. Are they failing you in this way? Yes. Next paper, effects of oral contraceptives on vitamin metabolism from 1976. Quote, literature on the effects of oral contraceptives, abbreviated OCs, on vitamin metabolism is reviewed. OCs have been reported to markedly increase serum levels of vitamin A. OCs may induce a thiamine deficiency and lower levels of vitamin B2. Concentrations of ascorbic acid, vitamin C, in platelets, white cells, plasma, and urine are decreased by OCs. Decreased plasma and red blood cell concentrations of folic acid have been reported in OC users, though it does not appear that absorption of folate polyglutamate is effective. OC users may develop megaloblastic anemia because of folic acid deficiency. OCs have been reported to markedly reduce serum levels of vitamin B12. Some OC users who excrete abnormal amounts of tryptophan metabolites have some degree of true vitamin B6 deficiency. Evidence of altered tryptophan metabolism and or absolute vitamin B6 deficiency have been found in emotionally depressed women taking OCs. OCs, especially estrogens, produce tryptophan metabolism abnormalities in the great majority of users. In the great majority of users, end quote. 1976. Next paper, vitamin A transporting plasma proteins and female sex hormones, not from 1979. Quote, oral contraceptive therapy induced a significant increase in retinol binding protein, which was correlated with the increase in vitamin A. The increase was about 35% for the formulation containing synthetic estrogen, as compared with 15% for the one with natural estrogen, end quote. Next one, the effect of oral contraceptive agents on plasma vitamin A in the human and the rat, 1977. Quote, women taking oral contraceptives have about a 50% higher than normal concentration of retinol in their plasma. And then where do you think they store it? And that was end quote. And then where do you think they store it? They put it in the liver and the tissues. And then guys like me, we got to help you get it out. We're getting close to being done with the papers like this. Serum vitamin, next paper, sorry. Serum vitamin A and retinol binding protein in malnourished women treated with oral contraceptives. Effects of estrogen dose and duration of treatment, 1979. Quote, malnourished women who have been treated with combination type oral contraceptives containing 0.03 milligrams or 0.05 milligrams of ethinyl estradiol and 0.15 milligrams D-norgestrel had significantly higher levels of serum retinol binding protein and vitamin A after 2 or 5 cycles of treatment compared with untreated control subjects. Next part. Both of the pills produce significant increases in serum vitamin A and retinol binding protein after 2 or 5 months of use. The rise being slightly, though not significantly greater with pill B. However, after 12 months of treatment, RBP levels were normal or only marginally elevated, whereas vitamin A levels continued to be high. End quote. Let me tell you, high vitamin A levels with low retinol binding protein levels. Retinol binding protein is what is supposed to be bound to vitamin A to carry it around the system so it's not extra toxic to you. So what they're saying is after a year of being on birth control pills, the vitamin A problem, because there was the vitamin A was still high, but the retinol binding proteins had dropped, is even worse for you. And this is what a lot of women know is the longer they were on birth control pills, their health just kind of tanked over time. It just got worse and worse. So, next paper, nutritional effects of oral contraceptive use, a review, 1980. Quote, a review of the literature indicates that OCs depress the levels of vitamin B2 or riboflavin, vitamin B6 or pyridoxine, folacin, vitamin B12, vitamin C or ascorbic acid, zinc, and elevate levels of vitamin K, copper, and iron. Next part. OC users have 50% to 80% higher serum levels of vitamin A than non-users. End quote. That's, okay. Lower B1, lower B2, lower B6, lower folate, B9, lower B12, lower vitamin C, lower zinc, and increased copper and iron. That's bad. That is really bad. 50 to 80% higher levels of vitamin A. Gosh, it's doing something, isn't it? Next paper. I think we got two more. Effect of oral contraceptive agents on vitamin and mineral requirements. 1980. We're still 40 years ago. 2020 now. Quote, pyridoxine in the form of coenzyme pyridoxal phosphate is involved in the conversion of tryptophan to niacin, and tryptophan load tests have shown that certain metabolites of B6 have increased secretion when OCs are used. Folic acid deficiency has been found in some OC users. As with pyridoxine and folacin, OC users may require supplementation of thiamine as well. When riboflavin deficiency is pre-existent, OCs exacerbate the condition. This effect may be race-dependent. Vitamin A, in contrast to the B vitamins, increases in the plasma of women taking OCs, perhaps due to greater mobilization of the vitamin by the liver. No. OC users generally show significantly lower leukocyte and platelet levels of ascorbic acid, and supplementation may be necessary. Zinc levels generally decrease, whereas copper levels in serum significantly increase in association with OC use. At present, supplements of vitamins and minerals are recommended only for high-risk groups, end quote. It's all the same stuff as before. Now, some other nutrients depleted by birth control. These were in more recent studies. From the paper, effects of oral, vaginal, and transdermal hormonal contraception on serum levels of coenzyme Q10, vitamin E, and total antioxidant capacity. Well, I'm going to give you the short version of this paper. It lowered CoQ10, it lowered vitamin E, and it lowered the total antioxidant capacity. Next one, oral contraceptives and changes in nutritional requirements. Quote, it has been shown that the key nutrient depletions concern folic acid, vitamins B2, B6, B12, vitamin C, vitamin E, and the minerals magnesium, selenium, and zinc. Gosh, we haven't even talked about the minerals yet, but here we have magnesium. Gosh, is magnesium deficiency an epidemic these days? If you're here watching me, you probably already know this. It is. Selenium and zinc. Gosh, does zinc deficiency play a role in hormones? Yeah. So the biggest question now that we went through all those papers, why do the problems and side effects of taking birth control last for years, decades, or even a lifetime after the birth control medication was stopped, right? If you stop the medication, if the medication is the only problem, shouldn't the side effects stop after you stop the med? That's not what's happening though, is it? That's not what so many of my clients tell me, is that birth control was the start of their health decline. If it wasn't the start, it was a major factor in it. So what is still left after you stop the med? Well, we kind of went over this at the very beginning. Nutrient deficiencies are left, and vitamin A toxicity is left. So once a person gets the nutrient, once they're deficient enough in these nutrients, particularly B1 thiamine, B2 riboflavin, zinc, selenium, and vitamin E, if you don't have enough of those, the detox systems known as ADH, alcohol dehydrogenase, and ALDH, aldehyde dehydrogenase, will never work the same again until those deficiencies have been corrected. Until the nutrient is, think of it this way. If you have a rough time in your life and you start depleting your savings to help during that rough time, you're not making enough money, or you're trying to help somebody out, you have unexpected expenses, you drain your savings account. Which it was great that you had that savings account. But does that savings account, if the emergency goes away, does that savings account just fill itself up again? No. Let's say your diet, like a lot of people's income these days, is barely enough. They're paycheck to paycheck. They barely make it week to week, month to month. Is that savings account ever filling up again? No. Then if you have another emergency, what do? Well, you got real problems. Think of that in terms of your health. Once you deplete those nutrients, if your diet can't refill it, the deficiency stays there. You have another nutrient emergency, or you take another med, or you decide to get into some crazy exercise thing that's using up all your nutrition, things of this nature, your nutrient deficiencies just go worse and worse. And your health problems get worse and worse. So how do we know that these nutrients are affecting this detox system, this ADH, alcohol dehydrogenase, and ALDH, aldehyde dehydrogenase? It's pretty simple to demonstrate. Alcohol dehydrogenase, keyword there, alcohol. Birth control pills, well, birth control in general is well known to make women more easily intoxicated by consuming alcohol. They get drunk easier, to use layman terms, right? Why is that? Because alcohol dehydrogenase and aldehyde dehydrogenase are what process alcohol. It's what detoxes alcohol when you drink. So if we have deficiencies in these nutrients that are needed to run this system, and you don't have enough of these nutrients, your detox system for alcohol doesn't run as well. Funny thing, retinol is an alcohol, just like ethanol is an alcohol. They go through the alcohol dehydrogenase system. Ethanol turns into acetaldehyde. Retinol turns into retinaldehyde, or they try to hide it from you by retinal. You didn't know that vitamin A turned into an aldehyde, did you? If any of you know how bad aldehydes are generally, vitamin A is both an alcohol and an aldehyde. So then acetaldehyde and retinaldehyde go through ALDH to then become acetic acid or retinoic acid. Retinoic acid being a chemical peel. So imagine what that's doing to your insides. Another little quick note about birth control. Birth control is known to make people more photosensitive, more sensitive to the sun. They're more easily burned. Their eyes are more sensitive to light. Just so happens that photosensitivity is one of the major symptoms that people often have with vitamin A toxicity. Are we connecting it enough yet? We're going to go into more. We're getting close, though. One thing that's very interesting about acetaldehyde, one way you can know if your ALDH system is not running very well is based on how hungover you get now, maybe after birth control pills, versus when you were younger. It's not just aging, it's that your aldehyde dehydrogenase system is getting worn down because of nutrient deficiencies and because of excess toxicities coming in. So if you were more sensitive to alcohol while you were on birth control, either in terms of getting drunk more easily or in terms of bad hangovers, your ALDH and ADH systems are not working as well as they should. If you've been more sensitive to alcohol ever since you took birth control, even afterwards, then what I'm telling you is your ADH and ALDH systems have never recovered, just like that savings account analogy I did. The nutrients are depleted and your toxicity is going up. All of the alcohols and aldehydes that you're being exposed to are not being processed as well as they need to be. So they stay in your system and they create more problems and they deplete more nutrients. It's a vicious cycle. So now, we're exposed to certain alcohols on a very regular basis, whether we realize it or not. The most common ones and some of the most toxic ones are methanol. And I go into what this is in my program, but methanol, also known as wood alcohol, ethanol, which is what we know as alcohol, and retinol, which is known as vitamin A. Ethanol turns into acetaldehyde. Methanol turns into formaldehyde. And retinol turns into retinaldehyde. This is simple math, as Dave Ramsey said, it's just math. If your detox system is running slower than it should, and this is not something you just fix in like a weekend cleanse and take a bunch of herbs that make you crap your brains out. No. This takes time and work. We stop putting so much in and we help it we help the detox system run faster, so you're probably gonna get rid of it. This is not like a little week-long juice fast, okay? This is not any of that nonsense. This is real science detox. If you have more alcohols and aldehydes coming in, then your detox system can get rid of fast enough, then you slowly accumulate more and more alcohols and aldehydes. They turn into esters and are stored in your tissues, in your liver, other places. This is why people keep getting sicker and sicker after birth control. Is there hope to fix it? Yes, there is hope to fix it. And it all makes sense once you hear what I'm talking about here, it all makes sense. Once we know what the problem is. This is why I'm the nutrition detective, is because I'm figuring out how to fix it. I'm figuring out the problem first, and then we figure out how to fix it. How do I help people to fix this? First, we correct the nutritional deficiencies. We need to give the body what it needs to run the system. How do I do this? Well, as I mentioned before, we test, we don't guess. If you're guessing, if you're just going to the supplement store and buying random stuff because you read an article on the internet, boy, good luck to you, because most of the supplements out there, in my opinion, there's very few. I don't use that many supplements relative to what all the other people out there are using. I'm using mostly essential nutrients, and then I use some other things, essential vitamins, essential minerals. I'm not doing shotgun approaches like multivitamins. We're hitting things on target. We're not just spraying the field with like multivitamins and B complexes. If you haven't heard about B6 toxicity, you're just taking random multivitamins and B complexes, do me a favor, do yourself a favor. Go on Facebook, search for B6 toxicity, see how many groups there are. I believe I saw at least 10 different groups for B6 toxicity. And you're gonna go and just randomly take multivitamins and B complexes. Good luck. Hope that works out. What I do to assess this, I use a combination of hair testing and blood testing, because you gotta use the right tool for the right job. And different minerals and different vitamins show up differently in different mediums because of the way they are processed in the body. And this has been what I've been figuring out for the last, geez, where are we at? 15 years now. So something you can do right now, that's also part of what I do to help people with this problem, is you need to eat organic. Glyphosate specifically will damage liver pathways, phase 2 liver pathways that contribute to vitamin A toxicity. Stephanie Seneff wrote about this in one of her papers. You need to avoid the toxicity in the food first. Pesticides slow down the dehydrogenase system. I call ADH and ALDH together. I call them the dehydrogenase system. Pesticides have been shown to slow down that system. You need to eat organic. Next, you want to reduce, minimize, and avoid exposure to the main alcohols and aldehydes that we are exposed to on a daily basis in modern society. This means methanol and formaldehyde, ethanol and acetaldehyde, retinol and retinaldehyde. And I go over all of these in my detox program in detail. One of the final things I do for people is I do something called homeopathic detox therapy, which is where we are using very, very specific remedies to undo the damage that birth control pills did inside the system. This can greatly speed results. Don't really care about your opinion on homeopathy. I have my opinion and I use it well. So don't need to convince me about it. Seen it work too many times. So after all of that, you now have a background on what birth control pills do scientifically to the body in terms of causing toxicity and in terms of causing nutrient deficiencies. And these, if you have problems with long-term disease, health issues from birth control pills, there are ways to fix it. That is what I do. You want to get in touch with me and find more info on this? Well, first of all, the Google Slides document will be linked in the comments, in the blurb below the video. All my references are in there. If you would like to check my references, I put them there. And if you'd like to go to my network, kind of like my little mini social network for people who are into this work and who are doing the detox program. The network is the home of my vitamin A, aldehydes, and glyphosate detox program. That is at nutrition-restored.mn.co. nutrition-restored.mn.co. That'll be in the blurb below. If you would like to work with me on what I call nutritional restoration, which is correcting all those nutrient deficiencies using testing, not guessing, that you can find it at nutritionrestored.com. And some of the nutritional supplements I use and recommend can also be found at drgarrettsmith.com. That's DRGARRETT Smith.com. Hope you all enjoyed it. This was my first live on YouTube. I gotta get going, go pick up my boy for his soccer practice. Hope you all enjoyed it. We get to start our live question and answer group where I have Grant Generu joining me. I do it weekly at the network. It is a paid thing, but I'm going to be doing not an interview, but taking Q&A with Grant Generu, the guy who introduced me to the concept of vitamin A toxicity. I will be doing, he'll be coming on once a month from here on out to what I call my inner circle group, where I take Q&As for an hour and a half each week, and Grant will be joining me for the first time starting tomorrow, Friday, January 10th, 2020. So hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great evening, day, wherever you are. Bye.